Okay, I want to know this. Who the fuck is still listening to Boston Manor? I don't get it, Billy. Maybe you can understand our neighborhood Boston Manor historian, because I listened to their new album today, and it's generic and terrible, and I don't understand. Sorry, I didn't say terrible. In my opinion, I don't really like it. It doesn't make any sense in relation to what I've known them for. I guess their last album was kind of like this, right?
Yeah. So if you know anything about Boston Manor, they started out as your standard typical pop punk, leaning towards hardcore British band. Were real solid, real standard in that sense. But over the last couple of years, have been experiencing this transition phase into a completely new sound. And the way I would describe the sound is kind of this very industrial 90s, like alt rock. But me, it just gets me thinking about like the impact that record labels have and their ability or their desire to kind of predict future trends, like stylistic trends and listening trends, to kind of get ahead of the curve. And I feel like Boston Manor is a perfect example of where that's happening right now. So I was curious to just kind of talk about that and see what you guys think about it.
It's funny because I never, like, and this may be a bias on my part, but I almost never blame the label. Like, I feel like I have maybe too much faith in bands themselves to make those decisions. So, like, I never had considered that it would be the label that would be, either gently or overtly pushing them in this, I don't want to say radio friendly because I don't think it is, but like more generic direction.
So what it is it's all label marketing, and it's basically called like the nostalgia pendulum. And like every 30 years you'll see these same kind of familiar trends resurfacing, basically because, like, when you think about it, like, people that grew up in the 90s are now kind of getting into that age where they're making money and they have expendable cash. So they're bringing this kind of style back in the hopes that they're going to recapture some of that nostalgic value in new listeners that also have money, that can now spend money to go see these bands on tour or buy merch. And it's all within that nostalgic value of this like 30-year kind of pendulum and you kind of think about it, especially for me, the 2010s, there's a ton of 80s influence stuff, and I was really into it. And it kind of just feeds right back into that like idea of labels kind of predicting these trends and trying to identify like basic factors that they can pull people back in through that nostalgic value.
Okay. It's definitely an interesting thought, but I wonder how much of it just occurs naturally, like with fashion or something. I mean, it's certainly cyclical, but yeah, I think we always tend to kind of blame the label if it's a pop artist. But if it's anything outside that genre, we kind of don't seem to acknowledge how much sway they would hold over an artist they signed.
And so the only reason I even started thinking about this was just a while back, and this is just one example, but having my buddy that's in the music industry, like, they were pushed, they started as trance artists, and they were pushed kind of into this mainstream EDM scene before it was mainstream EDM. And it's something that's thought about like 3-4 years before they even make that transition. It's thought about years in advance, and they're compiling this music and working on this stylistic change before they even announce it. And so now they became these big EDM artists, and now they're almost going back into that trance sound mixed with this new EDM, but they're kind of going back into that old sound that's familiar to people that are now, maybe a little older.
Right. Yeah, and I wonder, like, I'm actually very curious to know if this style, like this 90s kind of alt rock, glitzy, kind of, slightly edgy style, holds up and is more popular. Because, like, I think you spend more time in the pop punk scene than I do, and I don't know if this is just an easier transition for bands like that. Like, have they always had a keyboardist? Because I feel like the keyboard is like so prominent on this record, and I feel like that's what they're trying to use.
That's all just production. That's all just Yeah.
It's funny you aim it specifically at that genre because what's that legendary record label that did Blink and all those bands? Because theirs was truly systematic. They would hire on a bunch of talent and then they would jam them together in different projects to like see what they can squeeze out of it.
Right. And I know like Boston Manor's on Pure Noise, which is like a huge label. So they kind of, have the money and the capability to kind of look at these future trends. And I see it, I don't want to harp just on pop punk, but you see it with like Trophy Eyes, which is another pop punk band that's going this same direction and has been. They started that turn right at the exact same time.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm like I said before, like I really want to know if this is a general trend that we'll see, or if Boston Manor has like fucking jumped ship and they're like, this is what kids are going to be into. Like, is this what fucking Hot Topic?
Well, think about it. We mentioned this when we talked about the new Lady Gaga single. The new Lady Gaga single is so 90s. To like the video, like the music video is straight from the 90s. Like it's not just in pop punk, but it's a whole music trend.
Yeah, for sure. And it is Wednesday, May 13th, 2020. And we're going to get right into the trends of today because we got some great albums lined up for you. And my name is Jordan Kaufman. I fucked up the intro already. It is season 3, episode 6 of Blisspoint, a podcasting website serving up music discussion, news, show and album reviews, and more. You can check us out at bliss.house. That's bliss.house. The guy that kind of led that discussion is Mr. Billy Gatewood.
Oh, hey, sorry.
Very sorry. And I'm joined also by my lovely friend called Paul Kolb.
Billy, stop noticing things about music.
Yeah, you idiot.
That ruin the mysteria of it.
Very nice.
They don't want to know how the sausage is made.
And
exactly.
I think I would lend more credence to the Nostalgia Pendulum than Boston Manor making that decision themselves, but they won't ever tell us, so we'll probably never know.
They're also babies, so
yes, that is true. Yeah, they didn't experience the 90s, right?
Probably not. They're probably like mid to late 90s, like born mid to late 90s.
So, anywho, we're jumping into the best singles we've heard this week, and first up, I wouldn't necessarily call mine a best single, but I am very excited that this band is back.
They're pretty bad though, right? If we can be honest, they're not good.
No, definitely not. In fact, they just did you the favor and they named themselves Bad Bad Not Good. And they're back. Unfortunately, without the founding keyboardist, Maddie is no longer with the band. And as I was kind of hoping that they would find another keyboardist, in addition to the saxophone player that they've added full time. But it seems that they're just going the direction of original bassist and drummer and then using the saxophone player instead of doing a keyboardist. And I think that is a nice touch in theory, but I think this song kind of falls flat a little bit. Like, I think it's a little boring. I kind of hope the rest of the album isn't this slow. Like, I really wanted something grittier, something more interesting. And this seemed like a very pleasing, kind of fleeting track. Paul, I know you're a big fan of them. Do you have any thoughts about
It's funny. I liked it for sure, and I was half expecting you to sort of be happy that they were trying out different things, maybe going for a more laid-back vibe. But I have to agree with you in part. It's not quite the same energy you're expecting. And the keys were such a big fixture of, them when we first saw them and fell in love with them.
Right. And my, like, as you have noted, like, my core issue with bands releasing new music is it different enough for me that sets it apart from their old stuff, but is also still enjoyable? Or is it more of the same, but also still enjoyable? And I like I said, it is not, I don't think it's cool that it's a new direction. But yeah, I don't know. And I think we'll get more into that with the album of the week that you brought, Paul, because I feel kind of similarly. But yeah, this Ghost Inside track, the band sounds real familiar.
Yeah, so if you're familiar with the Ghost Inside, it's probably from like 2008, when they were a pretty well-known metalcore band in the heyday of that emo hardcore metalcore scene.
Cool name, bro.
But yeah, so the new single's called Aftermath. And the backstory behind this single and the kind of the reason I wanted to talk about it was it's truly amazing that they even released this single, because 5 years ago they were involved in a head-on collision when their tour bus struck another truck outside of Texas or somewhere in Texas, which seriously injured all the band members and unfortunately killed both of the drivers. The drummer actually had his leg amputated and had some nerve damage in his shoulder. The singer suffered multiple fractures. The guitarist underwent like 13 surgeries for like a femur injury. Yeah, so this is their first single since that accident, and it's truly incredible, and it's obviously very personal. Although they focused on taking what happened to them and kind of making it relatable. And
suddenly I don't have anything negative to say about it.
What might be like an obvious question is the drummer actually relearned how to play drums with a prosthetic leg instead of like opting for like MIDI drums or anything like that through the recording process, which is super cool.
That's pretty fun.
So it's cool to see them back and to release a song that's this strong and this good, especially after everything that happened. I think it's just a really cool story, and that's the main reason why I wanted to talk about it, especially if you were familiar with them from over 10 years ago.
Yeah, like the name sounded super familiar. I can't say that I remember their stuff all that much. But it's funny. I know this is gonna sound like a cop out because I actually enjoyed this. And I don't think I would, but I feel like the clean guitars. I mean, obviously it's very metalcore. You have the hard guitar, but they do have like the spacey kind of airy stuff that I have come to know and love is a strong word with Billy's often picks. But I think the mix here is actually really interesting. Like I think his vocals are pretty crushing and badass, and the guitars are nice, and it's just the cherry on top to know that these guys have come back from the edge and kind of have stuck to their guns and created something that sounds very modern. Or maybe it's just the fact that this sound hasn't really changed that much, and they just fit in, very well with the modern day.
Yeah, but it's a solid track, especially if you're into that metalcore stuff. So I definitely recommend checking it out.
And we're going to get into shoutouts. These are going to be the albums that may have just missed the cut for album of the week, or maybe we just haven't a chance to go knee deep into yet. And that is the case with my album of the week, Umbra Vitae. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Album's called Shadow of Life. It is a death metalcore record, more in the vein of, say, a Cabal, Billy, or like a Orange, rather than an Inter Arma. There are some blast beats, there are some aggressive vocals and buzzsaw guitars, but I think there's more diversity in the instrumentation than just those normal three staples on a typical death metal record. I think the vocals are an interesting, like, strained hardcore kind of timbre than your typical like Cookie Monster or like guttural vocals. But I think they also have some range. Like there's some creepy witch screams on here and some guttural death metal vocals. And I really, really like this record a lot. And I kind of can't wait to dive back in for some more. There's some dope guitar solos, especially the last song. I think the whole album's like maybe 20 or 30 minutes, so it's pretty short. The last song is like 4 minutes and is just the instrumentation is just fucking really cool.
I'm right there with you. I kind of briefly scrolled through it just to get a vibe of what it was about, and I am super stoked to kind of dive into it a little bit deeper, because what I did here through sampling a few songs was really good.
Yeah, I'm glad you really liked it. I was hoping that you had heard it because I was hoping it was kind of up your alley, because it did remind me a lot of that new Cabal record. And I was surprised that you liked that. I didn't think
You know, I don't know what this quarantine's doing to me, but I'm real into death metal right now. I don't know what to tell you.
That's a good trend to have.
If you could just be outwardly aggressive, but you're a gentle giant, so
No, I turn down my radio anytime there's people around.
Maybe it's that diet cigarette habit you picked up.
Look, have you ever listened to Diet Sig?
No, I have not.
Okay. So this new album is Do You Wonder About Me? Diet Sig is a pop punk duo. They actually relocated to Richmond, funny enough.
Oh no shit.
Yeah, which is super cool. So they're kind of known
where the
for
true
their,
stout begins.
they're known almost for this like really high energy, like leg kicking cheerleader pop punk. And this album, it starts off, the first 3 songs are very much those like 3 like sparkling pop bangers that you'd expect from them. But then the album takes a little bit of a turn, which leads into Priority Mail, which is kind of like this like soft lo-fi piano ballad that's also really good. And then they experiment with some more like shoegaze elements and stuff like that throughout. Now, if you're in the Diet Sig purely for the punk aspect, they come back around with Flash Flood, which is I think like 3/4 of the way through the album, and it's just straight up pop punk, just like their old stuff. It just nails, and it's super good. And the album's like 10 songs, and it's super quick, and it just leaves you satisfied. It's really good. They clearly got some more money. They were in a good studio, and I'm just stoked that they were able to put out, you know, some real quality recorded stuff because they deserve it. They're super fun to see live. We saw them at Rock and Roll Hotel, RIP, a year or 2 ago, and they were super super good live. So I'm really excited to see them get some money put into their recordings, and I definitely recommend checking it out if you're into that power pop.
Yeah, there was a lot of buzz on this record, surprisingly.
Good.
The forums that I follow. So I kind of checked it out before you had used it as your pick. It's definitely not for me. I appreciate that they're trying to do something new, because I feel like that's a major fault of mine with, you know, normal pop punk bands, is that they kind of stick to the formula, which does work and people fucking love, which is, you know, but it's more power to them. They're making money that way. But it's cool to see them kind of branch out a little bit, at least.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, albums of the week. These are the best albums we've heard all week, by far. These should be, well, maybe, I don't know, Billy, if you've had second thoughts about this one too. These should be easy locks for our Album of the Year tournament, or maybe our personal Album of the Years. And I'm going to jump right into it with Altopalo, Far Away From Everyone You Know. We heard a single of theirs a couple of weeks ago that I really loved. I think you guys enjoyed as well. And this is a natural extension of that, like, glitchy, jazzy, experimental R&B that is like very electronic, very cold. Kind of reminds me of James Blake a lot. I get some notes of Bon Iver too, and it's just like, if only on an instrumental level, like there's just so many things going on. Like the texturally, like if you take the song Power Lines, for example, like try to listen to that with some good headphones and like try to mentally pick apart every single thing that's going on. And it, you know, it could, like, if you don't like it, I could see why you would think it would sound busy, but I just think the layered approach is just so neat and so different and really kept my attention throughout the whole thing. And it felt like one of those records that is enhanced when you listen to it from front to back instead of on shuffle, because you don't get the really awesome build of Nocturne into Of Shadow, or the build from like the middle part of the album starting with Lub, and then there's a couple songs, and then Lub 2, and then there's another couple songs, and then Lub 3. And like that whole chunk is just this really neat kind of cinematic experience that I love, and I keep coming back to. It's just a really cool album that is very diverse, and you know, as I keep harping on, the instrumentation is just fucking awesome. So yeah.
Good for you.
Wow.
Another classic. Billy hates it.
I didn't say that. I'm just choosing to not say anything at all.
Yeah, no, nor would he ever say he hates anything.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
Don't have anything nice to say. Don't say anything at all.
Mighty Christian of you, friend.
Thank you.
What a good man. What a good man. I'm always curious to hear what you hate about the records, but I won't dilly-dally.
He just hates it because it's called Lost at Midnight.
That's my record.
He never wants to. Oh,
that's why
my bad.
That's a good album.
We'll get into that.
If you say so.
Mr. Do you wanna jump into Lost at Midnight?
We can jump into that so you guys can crush me on this one, I'm sure. So my album of the week is OTR, aka Ryan Chadwick. He is a young aerospace engineer turned producer who just put out his debut electronic album. He is an Ohio native. I think he's now Atlanta based, but he began producing when he moved to Japan for grad school. And I think it's pretty clear on this album that played a pretty important role in his stylistic choices. As like the album kind of focuses a lot on like isolation and the challenges associated with the struggle of like finding a place in a community when there's such a language barrier. So the production itself is mostly like down tempo chill wave. It's real emotive. There's some really good lyrical features. The second track actually features Panama, who is one of my favorite producers and vocalists. There's also features from Shalou, who is from Rockville, Maryland. So he's a local, as well as like Vancouver Sleep Clinic and Saint Sinner, who we infamously and probably unfairly blamed for ruining Tycho's new album.
I mean, it is entirely that album sucks. So.
But her feature on this album is real good. If you like kind of that layered synth, atmospheric pads and sidechain synths, you'll love this album.
I don't want you to think that I hate this record because
That's fine.
I'm gonna be real with you.
Okay.
I loved Midnight Sun a lot.
Okay.
It was really, really good. I love the like glittering kind of percussive arpeggiated synths on that track.
Yeah, a lot of that. Mm-hmm.
A little bit. And I liked Night as well. I thought that was like a different, really, like I was not expecting any change of pace. Like it's a really upbeat housey track.
True.
That I really enjoyed. I think my main gripe was just a lot of the vocalists are in my opinion.
You can hate on it. It's fine.
No, I don't hate them. I think they're very good vocalists. I just don't like the bargain bin, electronica vocalist. Like very clean, very talented, but I just think his talent, I think, is stripped away on these songs where he brings in vocalists, because I think the tracks are less interesting overall than the ones where he's just doing his thing. But it's just picky about vocals. That's me.
This one's for the kids, and it's for the money. He clearly is aiming to get some mainstream dollars here, and I can't hate him for that. If that's what you want to go after, that's what you want to go after, and I think he nails that style pretty well. And I totally get that if you're looking for something that's totally unique and new, this is not going to be it. But if you're looking for that kind of down-tempo EDM that's really coming to the forefront now, this is one that's going to probably do you good.
It's such a shame when artists cultivate a skill set and a style and then they want to benefit from it somehow. Man, what sad times.
How dare you try to make a living?
I think you're totally right. Like it's probably unfair of me to judge EDM artists for not trying to be like out there and weird and different. Like I totally get that, especially with his background. Like I just briefly read an article, or saw the headline rather, of like he gave up his master's degree to like pursue music because that's what he enjoys, and like it's fucking cool. Like I think that's awesome. I think his story is nice. So I'll give him props for that. But some might say he may be keeping that door open.
Ugh.
Whereas other people might not be keeping the door open.
So, gentlemen, let me first ask Is indie pop rock a thing? Is that a genre?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, okay. Somehow it's a genre.
Yeah.
And once again, it falls to me to represent Car Seat Headrest.
For
Their latest
sure.
release, Making a Door Less Open, has brought me a lot of joy over the past week. And, you know, there's not a whole lot of the people in the genre that I can name, but I feel like there's a lot more electronic sounds on this one. They're still bringing grit and inventiveness. You want to talk about the Fiona Apple thing? This is how you do strange, unexpected flourishes in songs and have it only complement the track. Everything about this just feels more polished and fleshed out, but stylistically, you still get that same vibe as the old bedroom tracks. I'm kind of dying to see what you guys think of it.
So, I do love Car Seat Headrest. I am in that camp. I think my biggest thing is I need to spend more time with it. So I'll be honest, I was curious what people online were thinking about it. So I was just reading, forum posts and what people's thoughts were on it. And that had kind of really tempered my expectations going into it because at least the indie head subreddit does not like this album at all.
It's not.
I think that's good though, because I went into it with kind of very low expectations, and I think I like it. I don't hate it. I don't think it's jumping out at me. And that's why I need to spend more time with it. Like I really want to know if it's the album itself or if it's just my expectations that are wrong. Because I do think, kind of like we touched on before, I think that they're really doing something different with their sound, and I want to applaud them for that because I think they are doing a good job with that, and I think this is a good step in a different direction. And I will always trust in Will Toledo because he's becoming one of my favorite frontmen for sure.
Did you notice that he went for like a 2000s era Beck, like Devil's Haircut era kind of sound with the vocals?
Absolutely.
I think it complements the songs well. It just it's something different for sure.
Yeah, and I honestly, I don't know, this may be hyperbolic. I don't know how you feel about it, Paul, but he kind of reminds me of John Darnielle in a way from the Mountain Goats. Like
That's high praise in my world.
His sound, his vocal sound, I think is very idiosyncratic and is just very different for the genre. And I think it only benefits the band by him sounding the way he does, even if it's not, your perfect vocal style, and he can be kind of off key in some places. I enjoy it. So yeah, the long and short of it is I want to spend more time with it.
So. And that's kind of exactly my thing. Is like it's really hard to dissect an album when you go in expecting a certain sound and it's not that sound.
Yes.
But that doesn't necessarily mean it's bad, right? So like I went in and was weirdly caught off guard, and I was at first like, I don't know if I like this, but is that just a product of me not expecting that sound? So I'm kind of in the same camp of like, I need to go back and listen to it again with a new light, knowing it's not going to be, just like his old stuff, and knowing there's going to be some more experimentation with the electronic elements, and just judging it based off that instead of what I kind of expected it to sound like.
Yeah, I'm staring right now at the vinyl of Twin Fantasy, and I don't need that again. I have that; it's right here.
Right? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So it is always interesting to me, and I feel like it's always going to be the thing we talk about on here is just the way band sounds develop and what causes it, and how the fans receive it.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Green Day had that god awful album the other year. And I can't imagine the people that like that were the same people listening to Nimrod.
Very true. Very true. Yeah, I kind of want to know. I'm kind of excited to peek at the future and see where this ends up on my album of the year list, if at all. Like, do I end up fighting for this because I think it's interesting and different, and I really enjoyed it. So we'll see. You'll have to tune in to find out. But if you're curious about the singles and albums we talked about today and the ones we didn't, there will be a playlist up on the site containing all the singles and the best tracks from this week's albums. That site
And
is
please do check out that playlist because this was another week that I really struggled because there's so many good singles.
very true. There's a lot of. I feel like we went through a singles drought for like the first.
I know. So I was all of this camp of like, let's cut every single ever because they're getting real boring. And now, of course, I find so many singles I like. So I'm just, please check out the playlist. If you really want to kind of dive into some more of the stuff we're listening to and more of the music discovery aspect of things, please check out the playlist because there's a lot of really good stuff on there that we didn't get a chance to talk about.
Yes, completely agree. You can find that playlist up on this site. That's bliss.house, bliss.haus. You can check us out on all the places podcasts are listened to or ignored. Like us, subscribe to us, follow us, etc. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other. I love you all. And that is bliss.house, bliss.haus. And thanks for coming, fellas. I really...
Thank you.
Okay,
I'm glad
Google.
that you all are doing well.
No. Thank you. I'm glad you're doing well, Billy.
I'm doing pretty good.
Hanging in there. Solid 6 out of 10.
I would give
home,
me
guys.
a Anthony Fantano 7.
Whoa, buddy. Whoa. You're perceived as a misogynist.
I know, right?